Hi, my name is Gavyn Walsh. I am a senior biochemistry and molecular biology major with a double major in chemistry. And today I'm going to be talking a little bit about biologic drugs and small molecules. And I'm going to be explaining why biologic drugs are more complicated than small molecule drugs. So just a little bit of definitions here. The small molecule drugs, they're generally small, as you would think. They're smaller than 1 kilodalton in size. And they're typically administered orally. So if you think about tablets or capsules, those are your typical small molecule drugs. They're generally used to inhibit enzymes, modify proteins allosterically, meaning that they're binding to a spot on the protein that a substrate usually doesn't bind to. So somewhere outside of the binding pocket. And these drugs will also bind to membrane-bound proteins on the cell. They're expensive, despite how common they are in society. If you're on any prescription drugs, you understand this. And then biologics are typically a lot larger than the small molecules. They're a lot larger than 1 kilodalton typically. They're usually administered intravenously, so not in tablets. More think about injections. They're usually isolated from biological systems. They're based around biological systems, hence the name. However, they're usually isolated instead of just simply synthesized in a lab. And they're typically more expensive because of the process it takes to industrially manufacture these drugs. Small molecules are less specific than biologics, so there's more side effects resulting from that, and their structures are less complex than biologics. So small molecules are designed with certain functional groups or characteristic atoms attached that are designed to bind in a desired pocket. However, the size of the molecule and the certain functional groups can also bind in a lot of different places. They're not super specific, although we'd like them to be. That's why some drugs have more side effects than others. And this is one huge downside of small molecule drugs. Biologics, on the other hand, are highly specific, making them the future of drug development. The more we learn about genetics, the more we're going to be able to develop quality biologic-based drugs. Their structures are very complex. If you look at human insulin, all those ribbons there and the different bands and turns, all of those have atoms, just like the atorvastatin, which is used to control cholesterol. All of them have different atoms. However, there's just a lot more going on in insulin versus atorvastatin, just for example. And this is a little bit of the process about how they're made. So small molecules are synthesized in a lab. So think of like a chemistry lab. They're harsh manipulations. There's acids, bases, all these different things going on just to make your small molecule drug. However, biologics are often isolated from a biological system, which makes them difficult to achieve industrial size yields. So you can get small batches of them fairly easily, but they're difficult to scale up because of different conditions that are required. pH, for example, has to be very, very precise. Otherwise, it can cause a misfolding of proteins, which is not safe to be administered to the general public. So more caution is required, and there's a lot of genetic and biological knowledge that's needed. I put a signal cascade over there in the corner, just as an example of how much is going on in your cell. And in order for a biological drug to be effective, we have to understand each step in the pathway. In conclusion, biologics are highly complex. Structurally, they're complex. There's a lot of difficulty in isolating them and industrially producing them. And that's just due to the fact that they're very sensitive to their environment. pH is important, understanding the genetics. So if we're doing a recombinant DNA, like putting a piece of DNA in bacteria and isolating our protein from there, that requires a lot of time and knowledge. And biologics are highly specific, which is the main advantage. So although there's complexity behind it, it's going to be the future of where we're headed to develop more specific drugs with fewer side effects. And I recommend this reading if you're interested in anything about biologics. Pretty straightforward, and there's a lot of good information in there.